They scoff and speak wickedly concerning oppression. So they are making fun of believers. And then they even speak against God there in verse 9. They set their mouth against the heavens, and their tongue walks through the earth. And then again in verse 11, they sort of mock God in verse 11. And they say, how does God know? How does God know the things that I'm doing? Because I just live life like I want to. I live life by my own set of rules. And so how does God know that? Verse 10 indicates that this boasting and scoffing has a powerful impact on those who are trying to follow God. And then in verse 12, it gives us Asaph gives a summary of what the wicked are like. See, look there back in verse 12. Behold, these are the ungodly, who are always at ease. They increase in riches. You see, Asaph was slipping. He was focused solely upon the present time. He focused solely upon the prosperity, the peace, and the pride of the wicked. But we can't overlook the root of this slipping. You see, I mentioned it earlier, and I want to go back, and I really want to drive something home here. So if you're not paying attention, wake up now and listen carefully. You got to get to the root of the problem. Go back to verse 3. For I was, what? Envious. Of who? The foolish. His envy. And then down in verse 21, it says that he was embittered. His envy led him to embitterment toward God. And folks, we do the same thing. And you say, well, now that's crazy. Why would I envy the ungodly? And it's because you are looking from a human perspective. And you look at their appearance. And you say, man, look at that car they're driving. Wow, look at that house with that huge swimming pool they have. Look at all of these possessions that they have. They seem to just have it good. And it just doesn't seem fair that God has given them all this and they're such a wicked person, and here I am, the righteous person, the Christian, the godly person, and God hasn't given me any of that stuff. And that's exactly what Asaph is talking about. He envied the arrogant. He envied the prideful, the boastful. And folks, we are the same way. We're jealous of those who seem to live without boundaries, of those who can do whatever they want. You know, some of you may be sitting there right now wondering right now if following Christ is really worth it. Why should I live for Jesus when others seem to be doing all right without Him? If you're honest with yourself, I'm going to be the first to admit I have struggled with that myself. Here I am, trying to live a godly life. I look at others, and it seems they're doing all right without God. And it just doesn't seem fair. Maybe you're here this morning and you're ready to give in. You're saying, I'm just going to quit. I'm tired of church. I'm tired of God. I'm just going to live life on my own like the rest of the world. Well, let me ask you something. Is it more important for you to be popular or to be pure in heart? Because that's where Asaph started. See, back in verse 1, he said, truly God is good to Israel, to such as are pure in heart. You may be the popular person at your workplace. You may be the popular person at school or wherever. But if you're not pure in heart, that's where it really counts. Well, Asaph was struggling. He was envious. He was jealous of those wicked people. He believes that there is no advantage to living a godly life. I like how in verse 13, I'll just go down to verse 13. He says there in verse 13, surely I have cleansed my heart in vain. I like how one translation reads, have I been wasting my time? Why take the trouble to be pure? That's a different translation of verse 13 there. And folks, we have all asked that question. Am I wasting my time trying to live a godly life? Am I wasting my time taking the trouble to live a pure life? Like I said, I'll be the first to admit this morning that I have asked those questions. There was a time in my life years ago when I slipped. And I fell away from God and away in my relationship with Him. And you may be here this morning, you may be struggling with those very issues. But you see, it doesn't end there. It doesn't end with Asaph slipping. The third thing is that Asaph was sustained. Asaph was sustained. What is it that changes everything for Asaph? Well, it is the same thing that will transform our perspective, and that is worship. See, I want you to go down to verse 17. Verses 14 through 16 outline how deep his struggle goes. And then in verse 17, well, actually, I want you to go back to verse 16. When I thought how to understand this, so Asaph, he's sitting around, he's trying to think, I just don't understand what in the world is going on. And then he says there, it was too painful for me. And then I love verse 17. Verse 17 is the key verse. Until I went into the sanctuary of God, then I understood therein. Asaph went to church. He went into the sanctuary to worship God. Verse 17 is the hinge point of this song. Till I entered the sanctuary of God, then I understood their final destiny. I like how another translation puts it. Then I understood the whole picture. You see, when we just look at those around us, and when we judge God according to our own experiences, we can never have the whole picture. Everything is put into proper perspective when we go into the presence of God. The prosperity of the wicked had filled his vision. That is why he was slipping. He focused upon that present situation. But from now on to the end of this psalm, God Himself, the God of the sanctuary, becomes his focal point. Listen, he goes from a human perspective to a heavenly perspective. He's no longer going to focus upon the wicked people and how it looks, how easy it looks for them, because that is the human perspective. For the rest of the psalm, he goes to the heavenly perspective. He focuses upon God. A couple of things about how he was sustained. He was sustained because he entered. Verse 17, like I said, is the key verse. His attendance in worship at the sanctuary was the beginning of the end of his slipping. You see, he was slipping all the way up till then. But then he entered the sanctuary. He went to worship the Lord. Folks, that is the key. Now, let me just say, you're off to a good start, because you're here this morning. You came into the sanctuary of God to worship Him. And hopefully, you will get something out of the songs or out of the worship or something that will help you focus upon God. But now listen, I don't know about you, but once on Sunday morning doesn't do it for me.